Hello, welcome to Zim Capture. I'm inventor Dan Zen, and Zim at zim.js.com is an open source framework to make interactive media on the HTML canvas using JavaScript and Create.js. In this capture, we're going to take a look at a few things. We're going to take a look at scaling, at placing with code, and at masking. And these are some of the final functions in the Zim create module. All right, let's go into some code now. Well, let's build something that we can scale and work with. So var rect is equal to a new zim.rectangle. And we'll make this 200 by 200. And frame dot brown. We haven't done brown in a while. Now brown is a property of the frame object that gives us a zim brown color. That can be any color you want, such as quote red. And let's center this on the stage. Rect.center on the stage, like so. And take a look. Here it is here. There it is. A brown rectangle, well, it's a square, sitting in the center of the stage. Now we can scale this traditionally with the Create.js scale x and scale y, and that looks like this. Rect.scale x is equal to 2. So that will make it twice as wide as it was before. There it is. Now note that we've scaled it after we've centered it. So keep this thing centered. We might want to do our scaling first. And we could do the same. Often we want to keep this proportional, so we'll do the same thing with the y as well. And refresh, and there we've scaled both the x and y by 2. Now there's a shortcut, the zim, hey, how did I get way up there? There is a shortcut, the zim scale 2. Not E. There we go. So rect.scale 2, and this will scale both the scale x and the scale y by 2, and we get the same thing. And obviously you can scale smaller too. Refresh, and it goes little mini. Okay, so that's scale. We can also scale to something. So now let's go scale to. And we say what we want to scale to. We could scale to the stage. And then we specify how much in the width, or in the x horizontal. What percentage? And this percentage is out of 100. So how about we do 50% of the x. So we save this and refresh. And now we're at 50%. You might be able to tell this better if we don't center it. Let's just stage.addChild rect, like so, and not center it. And since we have a 0, 0 registration here, it will be popped up here and it will scale 50%. Half the stage. Now that's half the stage width. We could scale it to the stage height, in which case we don't put anything for the x, we put null, and then we do the height 100%. So this will scale to 100% of the height, and there it is. Now if we were to center that, that would look like so. Refresh. And there she be sitting in there. Now we can also scale to 100% of either, and what this will do by default is it will take the minimum, so whatever is constricting it, it will use that. So we save that and refresh here, and we're going to see the same thing. But for instance, if this rectangle were not 200 by 200, but rather say 400 by 200, then this is what we see. There, see what it's done? It's scaled out to the width is now the limiting factor, and it doesn't go anymore. Now there's, if we pop open the documentation, we can read about that. Oh, pizzazz. And into the docs, and we type in scale t, and here's scale 2. The object, so that we put in zim.forth, we put in the front. So the bounds object, so what we're scaling to, the percent in the x, the percent in the y, and the type. So what is this type? Type, default is smallest. To fit inside or outside or stretch to bounds. So smallest uses the smallest scaling, keeping the proportion. So that's just like fit. Biggest uses the largest scaling, keeping the proportion. So that's fit outside. And both keeps both the x and y scales, and it may stretch the object. So if we pop back here and do both, we'll see that since we're asking for 100% of both, that's going to stretch the object, no matter what shape it is. So we'll put both here and save this, and now we've got a brown background. Even if this were 200, 200, it's still going to scale it in the same way. Okay, so that's the scale 2. Now there's, you see what we've done in saying 100, 100, like so, with the default of fit, and while we center it on the stage, we get this. Remember this? There it is. Well, that's now a square fit on the stage. We can do fit in another way by using zim.fit. So rather than centering and scaling, watch this. We comment out these guys. We'll just do a stage.addChild rect, and it doesn't matter either before or after. We would say rect.fit. By default, that will use the rectangle of the stage to fit it on the stage. So rect.fit, and we refresh, and there it is again. If we had a skinny rectangle like that, and rect.fit, refresh, there we are. So what this does is it fits the shape and keeps the shape's proportion. It fits the shape to the given rectangle. And if no rectangle is given, it assumes 0, 0, stage width, and stage height. So now that fits that. And where this is handy is we can fit to certain dimensions. So let's make another rectangle that will try and fit inside. So var backing. We'll do a new zim.rectangle. We don't have to make a real rectangle. We can just do a code rectangle and it would fit within that. But anyway, there's the rectangle, and we'll make this, well, I don't know, 500, 500. And we'll make it frame dot dark. Ooh. We'll center this on the stage. Backing dot center on the stage, like so. Now we will fit, and where do we do that? Down here. We'll fit the rectangle to the backing. So that would be backing.x, backing.y, backing.width, and backing.height. Height. I can do it. H-E-I-T. Okay, so that is the dimensions of the backing. And we save that and refresh here. There's the backing. It's our square. And we've now fit the rectangle to that backing. When we do, we might wonder what the scale of that is. And that's what this returns. Well, somewhat similar. Var data is equal to. So this fit returns an object. And one of the things in that object, if we zog data, well, we can, well, yeah, sure, we can just zog data. But we could ask for data.scale, and that would give us the scale. But we'll refresh here, and F12. It's an object. It has x of 262, so its x position is 262. Its y position is 259. Its width is 500. Its height is 250. Its scale is 1.25. And this is the original bounding rectangle here that is given x, y, or sorry, x, x, y of the bounding, and width and height of the bounding, which was 500, 500. All right. Now, I introduced this fit when I was creating the Zim layout class, which fits a lot of things into boundaries, so regions, and these are flexible regions that can have max widths and percentages and all these kinds of things, margins, etc. So that's primarily what fit was used for, but if you're building something like bounding rectangles yourself and all that kind of stuff, fit can be handy. Tended to use it quite a lot. All right, so that is scaling and fitting. Let's talk about placing. So something slightly different. So we will keep a rectangle around. We won't fit it though. And we won't have a backing either. So we've still got a rectangle 400 by 200. And we've added to the stage. So shall we? Well, it doesn't matter whether we center it or add it. We may as well just child the rect. Now the idea is if this is what we've got and we want to place this rectangle somewhere on the stage, then we would have to eyeball it, or sometimes we type in some numbers for x and y. It's kind of like this. How about, do I want that rectangle at rect.x equals 100, rect.y equals 100, like so, and we refresh here. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. We want it moved over just a little to the right. That would be 150. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Just back a little bit. That would be 145. Let's see. Yeah, that looks, no, 142, etc. So if you're ever like that, where you're placing stuff with code, there is something called zim place. So we just get rid of those and we say rect.place. Now, that's all you need to do, but I like just adding a parameter called rect in there, and I'll show you why. So now we save this and we refresh. We pick up the rectangle and we say, that is where I wanted it to be. And look, rect.x is 85, rect.y is 67. So we just copy that. We come into our code, we put it in there, and we comment that out. And we refresh here, and there she be. Okay, so it's just a temporary help to allow us to drag something around and eyeball, like visually place it. Now, there are professional tools in Zim to do that, and that is the Zim grid and Zim layout. That allows us to show a grid in percentage or in pixels. Not layout, sorry, Zim, what's it called? A guide. So a guide will tell us how far away something is from something else, and we can use that in our calculations. But we'll get to that in a later capture when we take a look through the pages module, which is one of the later modules in Zim. Okay, so that's place. Cool, huh? And if you don't put rect in there as a parameter, then it just says obj.x and obj.y, and you have to change the name of that. So it's probably just a bit faster to pass in the name of the object as a parameter there. All right, the last one we wanted to look at today is masking. So let's make a circle. Our circle, and there's a good Zim bit on masking that involves pictures and it involves dragging masks and all that kind of stuff. So you might want to take a look at the Zim bits. So var circle, is equal to a new circle, like that. And let's see, we'll make it so that we can see the circle inside this rectangle, but we can't see the circle anywhere else. And for that, we're going to get rid of place and just center the rectangle again. Okay, and we've got this var circle equals a new circle, and let's make it, how about 50 in radius, and we'll make it the color of frame.pink. Here we go. we will center this on the stage too. So circle.center on the stage, semicolon, and let's take a look. Circle is not defined. New zim.circle. Is that what you were trying to tell me? I heard some brain waves from you. Ew, that doesn't look very good. Pink on brown. What about pink on blue? Is that nice? Is that more vibrant? Refresh. Sure. It's kind of 80s. All right, so there's a circle, and what we want to do is make it so that we can see this circle only when it's inside of this blue background or rectangle. And if we may as well drag it, I guess. And if we drag it outside, we won't see it. Okay, so circle.drag, circle.drag. So now we can drag the circle around, and we'll see that that doesn't do what we want. Oh, darn. So I want this to act like a window, so it's almost like I'm looking through a window here, or the whole of an eye in a mask. And then I wouldn't be able to see it up here because I can only see out through this. So that's masking, and the way we do that, there is a Create.js mask, and it works with shapes only, and it's a bit peculiar in that if the shapes are in a different place, it doesn't quite work as you expect. So I've introduced a zim mask which works better with the zim shapes like rectangles and triangles and stuff, which aren't actually shapes. They're containers that hold a shape. So a Create.js mask doesn't quite work. So unless you do something tricky like use the shape property of a rectangle and then use that to mask. But even then we have an issue of the shape property is at 0, 0 inside the, inside a rectangle, for instance, and therefore it's like putting it 0, 0 on the stage as you're doing the mask, and you're going, what the heck is going on? My shape is over here in the middle of the page. Why isn't it masking it? And you get all these questions. So I took away some of those headaches for you and went to a zim.setmask. So if we want to set the mask of the circle to the rectangle, we would say circle.setmask. So what will be the mask for the circle? That's going to be the rectangle. When I first started working with masks, I would always get this mixed up as to which one's the mask and which one isn't. So the mask is what we're looking through. That's the rectangle. And then this is what we want to see in that mask, the circle. So we save that up and refresh here. And now when we drag, you can see that we can't see the circle outside of the mask. Now isn't that cool? All right, so that's the crux of a mask, I suppose. You might not really need to know anything more right now. One thing is, sometimes we want this to disappear. We really don't want to see this in the background. For instance, we might already have a background. Well, if we already have a background, then we can put the background above this mask. So make the mask go behind our background that we have. The other option is, I believe we can just set the alpha of the mask to 0. So rect.alpha equals 0. And we save this. And there we can't see it, but it still masks. Now that's a little bit different than hit tests and clicking on that mask. To be able to click on something, it has to have an alpha of 0.01 or above. It's got to have something there, otherwise we can't interact with it. But for a mask, it doesn't mind, which is nice. Okay, so that's masking. We took a look at placing things, and we took a look at scaling and scale to, and fit. Woohoo! Now let me just show you in the documentation. Close this. Where were we? We're right in this area here. So we're at the end of the zim create module where we have scale, scale to, fit. We've done center reg and center lots of times before. We've seen outline in a lot of things as well. There's the place. There's setmask. We didn't talk about expand, but expand can be handy. It can increase your hit area. Well, hey, we'll throw in a bonus here. How about that? So we can just go circle.expand. And by default, if we just say that, that will add 20 pixels to the bounding box of the circle that we can pick up. By default, 20 pixels. So we refresh this and take a look. As I approach the circle, now I've got an extra 20 pixels on that circle. Note that it's now a bounding box, though. So it's closer here, but farther away here, because it's 20 pixels to the bounding box. And what that allows us to do is on mobile, allows us to press buttons more easily, or drag slider knobs and that kind of stuff. So that's expand. And you can set that as well. By the way, you can also set it negative, which is kind of interesting. So if we go -20, like so, and refresh here, that can also be useful in that, watch this. So now the circle is not active until I get 20 pixels into the circle. Then it's active. But mind you, that's a square as well that's in there. So now we've got this square 20 pixels in from its normal bounding. Okay, so there, bonus round. Woohoo! Here we are at Zim Capture, just having a great time. zim.js.com. We'll talk to you later. I'm Inventor Dan Zen. Ciao.